What up, though? I'm Mateo, and you're listening to Ignorant the Podcast. In this show, I invite all sorts of different people to make me less ignorant to what they do, how they do it, why they do it, what it takes to do it, and the whole journey they've been on. All right, before we hop into the show, I just want to apologize ahead of time and ask you to bear with me for the first 3 to 4 minutes of this episode. I forgot to hit record, so I recorded off my camera, but it's going to, after the first 3 minutes, I realized it and I fixed it. So the first 3 minutes, just bear with me. Apologize. Thank you so much. On the podcast, and she's an activist and a community member. And actually, not sure where are you from? Are you from here?
I moved to Detroit in February of last year. Came out from Seattle, occupied Duwamish territory. I lived there for about 20 years.
Amish territory?
Duwamish.
Oh.
Duwamish. That's the tribe out there that
cool.
was there pre-7 times. But yeah, so I've been out here since February of last year. Bouncing back right now between here in Atlanta for the Stop Cop City campaign.
Yeah.
Defend Wahani Forest. But yeah, I live here.
Okay. So, my next question was going to be, so tell everybody like what you do before we dive in and I start asking questions. Go ahead. Let's dive into that.
I'm an organizer, so mostly for around Native rights from Mandan Hidatsa Arikara Nation out of North Dakota. So that's, and then I'm also a Assiniboine in my grandmother's line. So I work to bring Native rights and Native issues to the forefront, while also a strong focus on any other, human rights, giving them visibility, making sure, because I've got the ability to speak, I've got the ability to write, and some receive that with clarity. So after years of, activist on the side and, working as a responsible adult might, I eventually, in 2021, switched over to full-time activism.
Okay. And what is your, do you cover all different types of stuff? Or I know you said mostly Native, but now you're talking about this, the police building being built in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Is that native ground that's being built up? Well, I guess everything over here is native ground in America.
True.
but is it like currently property being held by natives? Or?
So it's Muskogee territory, Muskogee Creek, and that was their territorial, like their ancestral homeland. And it also shares space with an old prison farm. So you've got descendants that, from millennia back from the Muskogee that are buried there on those grounds. And same for those that were working in that prison farm. They also rest there. So it's
what's a prison farm?
The precursor to what I think industrialized prison is today. So rather than ever paying a prisoner, an inmate, there was a time where you just did work, and it's of course another form of slavery. And
so like sort of like indentured servant, or is that the same thing?
No, if you were caught committing a crime, you would end up in this prison, and then the farm or the prison would essentially rent you out,
Oh, they would rent you.
Right, but you're not making the money. The prison is.
Yeah.
Right. So it was just another form of exploitation. But there are ancestors there,
Yeah.
Some of those ancestors are lying on those grounds. And on top of that, Stop Cop City, that campaign, they're trying to build the largest police training facility on the grounds of those dead bodies, right? And that they're being built on the bones of black and brown people is a huge problem. Considering how well trained, quote unquote, how highly trained officers will come out of that facility if indeed it isn't built. That of course is going to bring more danger to black and brown bodies.
And it's like a black and brown community right now, close to there.
Yeah.
I mean, hold on. All right, back to where we left off. We were talking about the building in Atlanta being built. Let's go back to start about how you said it was on native land. Back to prison farms. Can we cover what that is again one more time?
So the name Wahani means rotten moon. After the Muskogee Creek came back from a hunting trip, I believe, they came back to find their relatives slaughtered. So that stench, what they smelled on the grounds there, smelled rotten, and in conjunction with the moon, right, and feeling like, this is a natural catastrophe to that band when they return and see what's happened. It stands for rotten moon. So they were also, taught by their elders that they would never return there. Because of the tragedy that took place there. So they left the land and, of course, were marched on from Georgia to Oklahoma during the Trail of Tears. Okay. So they haven't been residing there, right, since settlerism and being moved out, but it is still their homelands. Yeah. In the eyes of sovereignty, in the eyes of the Constitution, in the eyes of treaty law, right? This is traditionally their homelands. And if you look at it in the perspective of, well, would white residents be okay with us, ripping up their graveyards to build a fucking cop training facility? No, they would not.
Especially if it was a military grounds or something crazy like that. Yeah.
Right? They would say, fuck no.
Yeah.
So there is that. It's not their homelands. It's not. And then that will never change. And then the prison, I'm 100% certain most of the men there were probably wrongly convicted and
you're talking about the prison farm, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because it was, black men at that prison farm.
So this is a prison farm during slavery times, not during this is what I mean by right? Like, so in this prison were like Native Americans or was it like slaves?
Just black
slaves.
Yeah.
Okay.
And not necessarily enslaved blacks. But after slavery, I think in the 1900s, that's when this prison farm did most of its work. So forced there, not according to their own permission or consent whatsoever, yet they rest there.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And that's, you take care of your dead.
Yeah. And this facility is supposed to be a pretty big facility that they're building there, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is it, so it's been, 2 weeks since the protests have been, is it still, how's everything going over there right now?
The permits were revoked for work, and the police union chief said that that is the stupidest thing he could imagine, and work is going to continue. I'm paraphrasing what he said. But the work is, the city is trying to abide lawfully while also still ignoring, the 17 hours of testimony that citizens gave protesting the city doesn't want it. And it's been voted down.
Want the building either?
No, the residents of Atlanta have voted against it.
Is it in Atlanta or is it right outside of
Atlanta? In Atlanta. In Atlanta, DeKalb County, that area, there's a couple of different, it's a huge forest, so it spreads out over the course of a lot of land.
Yeah. And it sounds like it's a very militarized place. Like it has a place for explosives, a place for helicopters, a place for, it's not just a place for hey, practice.
No.
A small police training facility. It's it sounds like
they're building a mini city there.
Yeah, a militarized
prepare for protests.
Yeah, almost like a military base, but they're just not calling it a base. Calling it a police facility. Right.
Training so that their officers can be more apt to handle things like an uprising. Right? Because this wasn't an issue before that happened, and I think a lot of officers across the United States felt very ill-equipped, and also they don't work, right? Cops don't work. They sit in their car and fucking chit-chat with other officers, on their shifts.
It seems like,
and they're, of course, not preventing crime. They're not solving crime when crime happens.
Right.
So,
especially in suburbs.
Right.
There are more suburbs than there are in big cities.
Right.
So in those suburbs, they're just chilling for the most part.
Mm-hmm. So that they that is kind of their life, and they don't actually do anything. They weren't ready, I don't think, for the uprising, and they weren't ready for the ridicule. They weren't ready for the attitudes that came at them of the truth, right? Of how corrupt and how complicit they are in violence, and That's when a lot of states rushed, to try to find extra funding for training facilities.
You think there's any other places like that right now that are pretty big? Or
Place in Kansas, and there's talks of Sandy Springs, I believe it is, Georgia.
And that are already big or already built?
No, they're going to be the biggest. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So Kansas is already built, and then Sandy Springs and Atlanta would have the largest, and it would be 3 training facilities within the perimeters of Atlanta, Georgia, right? So that's what is Atlanta's like a predominantly black city.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? It's like
that's what I was noticing. Is like it seems like they're doing that in a very not only predominantly black but very powerful black city.
Yes.
Like they're very not afraid to protest. They're very they will stand up for themselves. Yeah. It seems like if there was maybe a place to start a revolution that wasn't on the far right, it would be in Atlanta.
Yes.
Because obviously with far right you think Texas.
Out of all of the organizing scenes I've been a part of, and that's Seattle during the Chaz Chop occupation, Line 3 in Minnesota, that whole state, 7 months worth, and Detroit, and now Atlanta. This is like the best well-running like machine I've seen. So you are correct in that, like, they know how to mobilize, they know how to organize.
And they're smart where they're putting it too.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's put there for a reason,
Right.
The state is going to try to shut down black activism.
Yeah. Plain
and simple, because they know that it's getting stronger.
Yeah. Do you think it's just black activism?
No, I know it's Latine, and there's barely, the radar for Native activism, so that's not huge on anybody's radar. But
as a threat, but
right.
it's respected as
right.
As a threat, it's not big enough.
We're small in number.
Yeah.
And therefore, being so rural and removed to like reservation spaces, it's harder to organize if you're Native. So that's why, the bell isn't being rung on that. But after BLM, finally got the press it should, that's when people started to realize, like, wait, we let the white supremacists out of the box. Yeah. The world knows how shitty this country really, truly is to black and brown people. Yeah. So we got to put the kibosh on that.
It's interesting how fast things are changing because of technology and because of I think for a while maybe some of the leaders thought that they're gonna have so much control, then they just didn't realize that technology was gonna come out and information was gonna be spread so fast that they couldn't keep control of the information anymore. And back in the day, they ran the newspapers or they ran the media, which they still do. But now it doesn't matter because I just go on Twitter and look for myself.
Right.
I'll go see
the actual truth.
Right.
Too.
I'll go see a million different people post what actually happened or live videos, whether, how unfortunate those can be or not. It's like you can just, you don't need certain media sources anymore. Nope. You don't have to rely on them at least.
Yeah. And if you don't have to rely on the state for your news. That creates a problem, for a state that has kept very good control over its citizens for hundreds of years now.
Yeah,
it has figured out those ways of suppressing, even as much as we live in what we think is a democracy, and we have the freedom of speech. When it comes down to it, I've been arrested more times for just standing there and yelling at cops with no weapons, no threats of violence. Yeah. We don't even have that, right? The freedom of speech. So it's not even a matter of like black and brown or accessibility or LGBTQ. It really is a matter of like, y'all, this shit is coming for white people too.
Yeah.
The suppression of civil or of your right to speak, of your right to have freedom of thought.
For sure. I think nobody's safe right now. I think things are in a position to where left or right, black or brown, on the other side, no matter what side you're on, is strong enough to silence you in one way or another. Or they have their game that they're playing on trying to silence you, whether it's on, like I said, left or right. They're both trying to silence each other, and somebody is getting silenced, whether it's activists on the left or far right people that have whatever it is.
Right.
Like everybody's getting silenced. Not everybody, but a lot of people with a powerful voice are getting silenced. So I don't think it's not one way, but it's definitely a problem. Because I think freedom of speech is important. Because one, I think it's important to know who thinks what You know what I mean? If some racist redneck
I
wants
want
to
to
go
know
out,
who my enemy
I
is.
want to know. Go ahead and tweet it.
Fuck.
Tell me.
Like, yes, please.
Yeah,
so I can stay fucking clear.
Tell me what's really on your mind. You know, I don't want you to. Only the real geniuses are keeping that shit low key and secret. You know, on purpose.
Right.
You know, the people that are going out there like, oh, I hate this or I hate that. It's like, why would you tell people that?
Right,
you're not. You're stupid.
Yes.
Like you're emotionally all fucked up.
Right. Mentally, probably.
Doesn't matter what side you're on. You know, you gotta have self control, especially if you want to change the world or win a war or something like that, win a fight or win anything. But speaking of that, do you ever think that a revolution could happen again, like a physical? Because right now it seems like a revolution is technology based. It's like we're fighting. And mostly, especially the left is very powerful technology-wise. You know, it's like it's like we can run all this. We run tech, we run Silicon Valley,
mutual aid,
and all that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But do you think there could be no civil war or revolution or physical one?
I think we could get close. When I expected it to happen was the early 2000s during the recession. I thought we would have risen up then. And then I saw like the little inkling during Occupy Wall Street. And I was like, oh shit, it's going to happen. But here's my theory about it is that we are still a little too comfortable, right? If you have the littlest bit of income, if you have some kind of shelter, and you are beholden to your 40-hour a week, if you do have a job, right? Yeah. And that's what makes it harder for people to get out into the streets and protest is, and again, my theory about the uprising was that we were all off because of the pandemic. We had time to be out in the streets. We knew we didn't have to be back to work on Monday. And if we did indeed spend the weekend in jail, we were fine because also a lot of us were able to draw unemployment because we had been working for years, even as much as they think Antifa is just rudderless, unemployed, fucking couch surfing assholes. So that made sure that we were able to be out in the streets and on a really constant basis, right? But that was the first time that I saw us like do continuous protest. The recession didn't do it. Occupy did, but it was a very select group of people. Standing Rock was also in a region of the country that was a select group of people. To see the rest of the nation rise up, you'd have to take away just a little more comfort. And I think we're getting there with food prices, like watching the escalation of you can't even feed your family anymore. And how we like treat school teachers, right? If you go after your proletariat and start attacking the very little comforts that they do have, we pay school teachers barely anything for some of the highest workloads to tend to children who are full of energy and chaos. Right. And I've been a child care worker for many years, so that's said with love. Yeah. And we also put them in a dangerous position of having to guard their children in the event that there's going to be a school shooting. Right. So one of the most dangerous jobs, much more dangerous than a cop at this point. And yet they...
And schools are tough. There's
right?
a bunch of fights, there's drama, there's emotional tension, there's mental health problems, there's kids coming who are being abused at home or not eating, not taking showers, they're dirty, they're neglected. There's a million things to think about as a teacher, it seems like, which I'm trying to get into that, with like do a series with teachers and stuff.
But if you're of that, right, working class, you bust your ass. And for the love of your people. You don't just teach because it's definitely not glamorous. It doesn't carry a lot of wealth. Right. You do it for the love of it, right? So if you continue to impact those people that do their jobs for the love of it, and because that's where their passions are, and that's where their fate led them, and you can take, and if you continue to fuck with that, as the American economy and government is concerned, you're gonna see people coming out swinging, right? And as they should. Yeah, this shit is appalling in this country. There's a lot of tension in this country, but I'm really young, and I know that this is my first. I've only seen 2 votes. I've only seen 2 presidents. I've only been around for 2 elections, and thought-wise. So, I'm, still kind of, seeing, oh, okay, this normally happens, or this doesn't happen, or, now I'm at the point where I realize, all right, election years are just batshit crazy and super stressful. Mm-hmm. Everybody hates each other. Yeah. Everybody, especially when you got someone Trump up there, or even Biden. You just got people just, it's like, there's no such thing as a peaceful moment during an election year. Yeah. It's
anything is everybody's fault. You know what I mean? It's like, so God's house I today. Yeah, fucking Biden or fucking, you know, it's like, what the fuck? Like, you know, it's like what is that thing? You know, but it's like, but there is a lot of tension everywhere right now, and like you say, for sure, there's a lot of people who are mad just about things that they should be mad about, whether it's police brutality or teachers not getting paid or not showing up anymore because, well, they're not being paid. The lack of trade, but the lack of tradesmen and women. But then we got rid of a lot of them a long time ago. Wall Street shit, you know what I mean? It's like, there's some shit. Then you got the far right. And that, if you actually just sit back and just get high and watch Fox News or something, that shit it's hilarious, but it's also kind of like, sad, because it's like they're just like digging into people's like soul, like they're just really trying to trigger people. It seems like it's like I could just sit there and smoke weed or be on shrooms and sit there and be like, what the fuck are these guys talking about? Or like, right. But then when I sit there and think about how if I was just some ignorant person, you know, but in this case, I can see what they're talking about, where they're coming from, but not where they're coming from, but what they're trying to do. You know, just some person, you know, in a small city, whatever, and all my knowledge comes from the news, and they're just saying the government's trying to turn your little boys into girls, or trying to, you know, convince all women that they shouldn't have kids anymore. Like, you know, they say such drastic things like that they're not like, you know what I mean? You know, it's like they literally say such like hurtful or like. Even if they're not hurtful, but just so like, you know, they're trying to do this to you. They're trying to do that to you. They're trying to, you know what I mean? That's pretty much.
They've mastered weaponizing language.
Right. And there's all this, it just seems like there's a lot of tension right now to it. It's a civil war, a revolution. Doesn't seem that far out. No. You know?
And that.
But I mean, also there's not very many people willing to die for what they believe in.
There's that.
Especially when it comes to activism. Right. You know, there's a lot of activists out there that like, you know, the talk, and you know, I have an opinion, but I'm definitely not often out down the front lines for sure. So I don't call myself an activist, but you know.
Hey, if you even give mutual aid, you know, that's still activism.
I believe in solidarity for sure. Even you know, my shirt right now, like, you know, Palestine, but it's like it's just, I'm for sure for solidarity, but I also know the fine line of calling yourself something that you are or you're not. You know, it's like yeah, I like to play flag football, but I'm not a professional athlete. I'm not a professional football. But, yeah, I can't walk around like, yeah, I play football. Like, you know, like I just like to go mess around with my friends. You know, so. But yeah, that's one thing in this is that it does seem like there's a lot of tension, especially nowadays in the world with Tucker Carlson or. You know, like,
they make you feel seen and they make you feel heard if you are white America, especially because I'm Native, which comes with that all of that genocidal trauma and generational trauma, but I'm also poor white, right? My mom's side, poor as shit, and so I understand and I see when my aunt, you know, voted for Trump, we didn't talk for years, you know, because this is a woman who taught me all my values and morals around, you know, loving everyone and treating everyone with care and kindness and love and compassion. Yeah. But in that, they make you feel seen. They make you feel heard as, you know, poor white or even poor brown or black, right? Like Tucker Carlson.
Or working class.
Makes you feel like you're valid in your day-to-day experience of being impoverished or working all the time and barely meeting middle class, meeting your needs. And since most of this population truly does live in scarcity, you know, that zeal and that like emotional appeal makes you feel safe, even if it is wrong. And even if you like were to really think critically about it, you're like, is this actually factual information? Yeah. We know it's not, but they would rather that emotional need be met of being seen and heard than to actually, you know, have discernment and think critically about what the fuck they're saying.
Right. Or to listen to other sources and figure out what's deeply going on versus just this one source, you know. Mm-hmm. And I do remember for a while, because I used to be in construction, and right when Trump came around, I was like, as a working class person, it's like a heavily labor person and very low income.
Yeah.
And in Arizona too, which is another thing, I was what's the word? I can't think of it, but basically like so being close to, and being in Arizona, close to the border, your work is worth nothing.
Yeah.
You know, because you're close to the border. And
Right.
there's plenty of Mexicans that are pretty much willing to work
Day
for
labor.
damn near nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which whatever. But then, you know, so a lot of people they'll leave Texas, even Mexicans, especially if they got the work permit or if they're documented. They will leave Texas and Arizona and come here, or you know, even California or Vegas or Chicago, to make better money. You know, and I just remember as a working class person, like working that hard, that Trump was exciting for a while before. You know, as time went on, you saw like all the ratings went down.
Right, he's just fucking crazy.
There was a
He's
lot
actually
before he just kept talking and kept talking and kept talking. Before all that happened, you know, it was just like it felt like he was talking for all of us. And I remember, and I'm speaking for a lot of my Mexican friends and family that also did construction with me and stuff like that. It's like it felt like for a while, it's like, yeah, like that's our guy. He's talking for us. Like we're taking advantage of. Nobody works as hard as us. Like. You know, it was like a toxic environment, and I had to break out of that. And it's like almost any hard-working environment I've been to, physically hard-working, like where you're bleeding or you're really sweating. It's like it's all
the sun all fucking
hard,
day.
right? Yeah,
Dehydrating.
yeah. Sweating, bleeding, crying, bitching,
Yeah.
being yelled at by a bunch of old white guys in suits.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
In 110-degry weather.
Right.
Yeah.
Pull up in their Mercedes, like, back in my day, I used to do this. Like,
No, you did not. We all know that's a lie.
Right. And even if you did, it was probably a lot more money, a lot less bills, a lot less inflation, a lot less, a lot less things to stress about.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I can see the appeal. And it's sad, you know, that it's also based on the reason that they can put the lies out there they did was because of they're branded as an entertainment company. Fox News.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love everything Fox except its news. I love Fox Sports.
Yeah.
I love Fox movies.
They're powerhouse. You know, they bring us entertainment.
Fox
and,
TV shows. I love everything Fox except for its news.
Yeah.
You know, and I think everybody's pretty much like that.
And
Everybody that's stuck in the rabbit hole watching TV still, but.
It's really disappointing to think like if people actually watch this documentary called A Day Without a Mexican, if that were to actually be applied, have you seen that?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I was like, I want this experience for white America. I want them to see what their world would be like if they're nannies, if they're fast food workers, if they're
vegan diets.
Yeah, if all of the workforce that is immigrant labor or that is black and brown labor.
I was gonna say black people too.
Yeah.
I think if all black people quit
if they pieced
non-corporate
out,
jobs, the corporate world would crash.
Crumble.
Yeah, there are a lot of black people in the corporate world, not equivalent to not as many as white people, but or even for other foreigners. But I think, if they I'm talking about all fast food chains, all grocery stores, all the number one job is a cashier. Mm-hmm. That's always been the number one job. It's the most because you had to pay. You got to buy everything. Every single thing has to be bought.
Yep.
So someone's cashing it in, somebody's bringing it in.
Yeah.
And those people are usually black, brown, or low income. Low income means also white. Yeah. So it's like if all of them just said fuck it. Well, now we are getting closer to AI just being like, go ahead, say it. But go ahead, say it, bitch. Like, quit. We're about to replace you. But if they all just did it anyways, or if they did it 5 years ago, they would have caused such a massive collapse.
Yeah.
That, it'd be insane.
Right. We could have taken this country over.
Yeah.
And I think that we could.
Without actually fighting. They would have had to put guns to our heads to tell us to work.
Right? If we actually had politicians that were.
Just like we kind of did the train people.
Yeah.
It's another thing to talk about. The train. How you?
Ooh. My
the
God.
train wreck. Which, by the way, why did I just find out this morning that there's been 4 or 5 train wrecks in the last 3 days?
It wasn't that one.
They're
crashing all over the United States.
Only one is on the news, but... And then I thought that bitch just caught on fire, but they lit it on fire.
To try to help the chemical spill? Is that why?
I think to prevent it from technically spilling on the floor, they wanted it to spill into the sky. So they literally calling it a controlled burn, I believe. I'm almost 100% positive they're calling it a controlled burn. Like the Native Americans used to do in a forest.
Right.
A controlled burn.
Make sure it doesn't get out of hand.
Yeah. I think they were afraid it was going to explode.
Yeah, it probably would have.
Because I guess it has nuclear power, technically.
Yeah.
Like the chemicals right now.
Shit is dangerous. The
is
animals are dead.
to nuclear power, but not But also the explosion could have been 2. So they avoided the explosion and just released the toxins of nuclear power
into air, particulate.
Yeah.
What the fuck are they thinking?
Yeah.
Like, that's the weird part about white America is it's corporate led. It's detached from nature, and they don't connect that like your air is your life source, right? So even if they would have left it on the ground and not burned it, that's going to destroy your food, right? Because all the water out there is now being impacted and flowing through these tributaries. It's insane how disconnected, right? And it should have been, I think, these spills should have been declared like national emergencies. And not...
At least in Ohio, for sure,
yes,
yeah.
Not until it was completely remediated. And that could take years. Would I, as a president or a leader of this country, even imagine putting residents or life back in that area? You know? And this is all coming from that the railroads shut down the strikers. You know?
Right. And do you think that these are coincidence, or do you think that they're retaliation?
Oh. Well, you know, I don't think that the worker would
I'm like,
retaliate
it's
in
like,
that way.
oh, fuck it. They want us to keep going. Let's just speed it up a little.
Right.
You know, like, just keep fucking, you know, it's like, let's see what happens. Go a little bit faster, you know?
Maybe they did, you know, and
That's, I had to be conspiracy theories, but I really been thinking, I was like, what if? Like, what if, like, all right, fuck it. They don't want to give us 1 day off paid. They want to give us one, let alone 7 out of 52 weeks out of the year. They don't want to give us one of those 52 weeks.
or do proper inspections on the cart on the
Right. Oh, and also what I also just read is that the people who are responsible for this crash also created a piece of technology for the braking system that was like 10 years ago. And then all the regulators realized is that once it went by, all the capitalists realized that once this became a thing, that they were going to have to enforce it into all the trains, and it was going to cost too much money. So then all the other businesses and all the other regulators and all of them basically were like, nah, fuck that. And then, you know, they started putting politicians in their pocket, like, you know, don't regulate this, don't regulate that, don't make that thing. But there's plenty of train companies. But the one that was responsible for this actually created a piece of technology to prevent this from happening. And it sounds like it was shut down by regulators and stuff like that. Because it would have been $500 million just to fucking start implementing that on all the tracks and all the trains. I think it was a brake system. It was some type of brake in the rail system. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the Norfolk business, they invented it. So like they literally invented this tool to prevent this thing from happening, and capitalist America said no. Was like no. So not only did they also fuck up, both people are not fucked. Yeah, because you knew that your cars were fucked, and you probably shouldn't keep going without this new technology. Right. And then the government was also like, well, fuck it, we're not paying for that technology. And you're like, well, they're not paying for it either. So, you know what I mean? Like,
we're just going to keep on trucking down the road
you know what I mean?
Cause a lot of environmental destruction. Right. You know?
And it sounds like that could be touching us. Michigan, here.
I have no doubt. You know, we are one state over. It doesn't matter if it's on the eastern side. Like, there's a thing we call wind.
And our land is a state over, but our water is connected. Yeah. Right?
Absolutely. Like the tributaries from, you can see it on the map where.
Was that Huron?
In East Palestine.
Wait. Yeah, down. Like, do the glove.
I still have to learn the lyrics.
Yeah, I think it's the body of water right here. This is Detroit, and then this water's right here. The train that got fucked up is in this area, I believe. Yep. And so I believe our water is, you know, and I also think they're talking about 200 miles radius, something like that.
Yeah, and they've got different branches of those tributaries that go throughout. Right. Over, I think feel like I remember when I saw that map, it was like Iowa, Minnesota. So through states, many states. So you're affecting a populace right there.
Oh, for sure, yeah. That water,
if they're using it for irrigation even. Yeah. You know, whatever they're using it for, if it's tourism and industry, depending on where that river runs. So not only have you collapsed your economy in those regions where that's what the local economy depends on, you have destroyed people's health, plain and simple. And it's like, that doesn't matter.
Right. And they're still running trains. Which every time, right now they're saying every time it passes by that toxic area, it just pushes the dust back up.
Oh my God.
And they're still running the trains. So
That's
the whole
insanity,
thing,
right?
Yeah, I need to get plugged in with somebody that's over there and see if I can get them on the podcast. But all right, so we got. I know you said you had to leave around 5ish.
Yep.
So we got like 15 more minutes.
Give
I want to talk about the pipeline too.
Okay.
Line was it pipe?
Line 3?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, line 3.
Uh-huh.
So what is that? So one thing I try to talk about the podcast. So I do somewhat research, not professionally. Not I try to just read and listen to as much as I can. But when I interview people, I like to try to say like, let's just say I'm some of the average American where I don't give a shit about the news. I don't care what's going on there. Just watching the Kardashians and the basketball game and you know what I mean? Like
Bachelorette.
what do I need to know about line 3 and stuff like that? If I'm just the average American,
Okay.
all I care about is Kardashians and stuff. What do I need to know?
I will try to explain
explain
it. I'm like,
you don't have to,
like,
you don't have to dumb it down that
lover?
much, but like how do I, what should I be worried about?
So Enbridge is a foreign company. It's a Canadian company that runs tar sands oil through its pipelines, and those pipelines exist throughout, a core of American infrastructure. It wanted to put a replacement line in through the state of Minnesota. State of Minnesota has many different bands of Anishinaabe, and 2 out of those 3 tribes voted it down. Said we refuse because it's on reservation land where a lot of this pipeline would go through. We don't want it. We know it's going to be dangerous for our waters. We know that it's going to be dangerous for our ricing industry because they still, there's wild rice out there, and it's not only traditional and cultural, it's a part of their economy. So they voted it down, and it was pushed through either way. Eminent domain.
This is in northern Michigan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, throughout the top part of Michigan or Minnesota down into Duluth, right there where the port would be. That shares the border with Wisconsin. So it was a matter of going out there, defending treaty law, right? This is on treaty land, not just, this is a reservation. And we signed agreements, with the United States government saying you couldn't touch those lands in exchange for all of the other land we gave you. Yeah. But treaties are traditionally broken all the time. It's like a rite of passage if you're an American government member that you will fucking break those treaties. So we went out there, trying in the name of environmental rights, in the name of treaty rights, native rights, to try to stop that pipeline from going through. Took over 1,000 arrests, I think, over the course of the summer.
This summer?
No, 2021.
Oh, okay.
A lot of my friends are still wrapping up their charges. And we processed from, Red Lake on down into Cloquet, which is where Fond du Lac is. Red Lake was involved in the fight. Fond du Lac band members. There was Shell River. There was a camp up there. So a lot of different bands were on board with fighting this pipeline. And there was the police were paid by and for Enbridge. So
the Canadian company?
Yeah. That's the point that I keep coming back to, that I'm like, y'all, like,
how does that work?
A foreign company.
They donated to the police force?
Mm-hmm.
Or they...
They just released a report about how much Enbridge paid for what they call the Northern Lights Task Force, which was the officers.
That's a terrible name.
I know.
It's a great, it's actually a good name, but it's a terrible name for this fucks.
It is. It is. Because they were just like violent motherfuckers. And they were like good old boys, right? Like they are the white racist.
Up there?
Yeah. Oh,
you mean they're not black
God.
People? All the way up there in North Michigan?
No, and they hate Indians, right? So it's like, you can't win with these assholes. And they wanted, by the end of that campaign, they wanted blood because we kept on showing up and kept on taking arrests, and they thought that, their authority would be good enough to get us to back down, and people would just listen to them because they're officers. And
so did it work? The pipeline got...
It went through. It was completely installed. There are frack outs all across the Mississippi, from the top of the state down throughout. Frack outs are like chemical spills where they've breached the aquifer, where the drilling fluids,
so frack out
sediment,
means it did spill.
Yeah.
It did leak.
And what that looks like is
fracking.
cysts in like your fish, right? And now they've got like cancers, and then the ground itself, all of the ecology around it, all of the the grasses, the plains,
Yeah.
whatever, the animals that engage in it die off.
And there's no way to clean that up.
You could, if you actually, well, for one, if you consulted
science.
with indigenous people and how they remediate land, and or with professionals that are not paid for by a pipeline, right? If you paid for actual like environmental remediators that could come in and properly take care of that land, there's a point at which the land might be okay.
Right.
But that's not being done. Therefore, it's going to get worse and worse.
Yeah.
Those chemicals just sit there.
Just soak up into the ground.
Mm-hmm. And if and when that pipeline bursts, because they all have, like every line that Enbridge has put into the United States has burst somewhere. Kalamazoo was the last one here in Michigan, and it was devastating to the local ecology.
I actually remember, wasn't that like a year ago?
No, 2012. Is that right?
Was it?
Yeah, it's been a while ago, but it was
I
2016.
remember. I don't know. You just do fly back.
Yeah.
I feel like I do remember spilling out
Kansas,
in Michigan.
They just had a spill out in Kansas. It was gross to see those pictures.
Yeah.
So it's not going to happen. You can't make pipelines safe, especially when you are a company who your whole bottom line depends on how much capital you can make. Right. You're not going to invest in safe measures to make sure these pipelines don't burst.
What are the pros of the pipeline?
I can't even deny, as a water protector / land defender, environmental justice advocate, I can't even deny that we are still fuel dependent, right? We don't have the infrastructure to switch over. And that would look like actually building high-speed trains or more monorail, right? And things that run off of hydro and electricity. Because even electric cars right now are being supported by lithium, which is another resource extraction problem. And the indigenous always end up paying the price for those. So Winnemucca out in Nevada, Thacker Pass, that whole area is being taken over, even though it's native land on treaty land.
Yeah.
And that's where they're going to mine lithium for electric cars. So here I am thinking we are human beings. We have evolved to the point where we are incredibly intelligent and capable. And yet we're still back in like these stone ages where it comes to technology and environmental safety, right? These are all solvable problems if we just invested and actually like put time and focus and energy into renewable, sustainable energy. Yeah. But that's not our priority because there's still like oil is a moneymaker, right? And construction is a moneymaker.
Right. And some of these countries are never going to run out.
Right. So we're stuck there. That's not in our favor. That really is a detriment to how much we are promoting our own end as human beings. The animals will make it. The earth will make it. We will fucking not. That's the interesting part of all these fights is like, this isn't about us just, being dramatic and wanting to be heard as activists. Right. This is about like human life and preserving it. And taking care of, the earth that takes care of you.
Right. Yeah. Because global warming is a whole nother thing that I pick my brain about. Because it seems like no matter what, the Earth's temperature is going to fluctuate like crazy. But it also seems that Americans, well, yeah, but humans have an effect on it a little bit.
Yeah. Because we're just careless. We think that we're above nature and that we've conquered it somehow, and that couldn't be further from the truth. And we'll see that, as more people end up with lung disease out in Ohio, the different cancers that are going to arise out of that, from that chemical spill and how it impacted the environment out there. You're going to see increased rates of these funky diseases, that would have been completely preventable had more care and time and effort been put into delivering those goods.
And money, God forbid. Spend
Jesus.
a little money. You might have to create some new technology, which means it's going to cost money to build it, which also means you're going to have to pay people accordingly to build it.
And money ain't going to solve that hole in your soul, assholes. It's like...
Not what you expect. It's going to solve... It's literally going to keep the world going around, but not destroy the world in the process.
I understand we need money to survive, and yet, the way that we go about it in our consumerism and our relationships with each other and how money is such a factor.
Yeah, and trade. No matter what, trade's gonna be there. If the
Right.
world ends, I'll be trading a blanket for a burger or whatever.
Right.
You never know. It's like you never know what it's gonna be. So
Right.
trade is always important, and you're always gonna have the guy that wants to have the most, and
Right. Because when it comes down to it, it's not even out of evil that we're doing this. It's because our brains taught us in evolution that it's vital to save energy, right? Energy is our daily battle. How do we get enough food? How do we stay fed? How do we preserve what that would look like if we were to run out of it? And so this convenience and all the, access to easy shipping and getting your needs met right away in our capitalist society here in America, it really does come from that sense of like, we barely made it this far in human evolution. Right. And now we can kind of take it easy. So we're taking it too easy, and we could be actually taking it easy in harmony with the earth. Right. And in this really beautiful, like innovative, technological way. Yeah,
farming, growing a lot of ways. Yeah.
Like the possibilities are really amazing to think about, and yet we're like, nah, we're gonna let this train fucking spill over.
Right. Yeah, we're gonna keep polluting the earth to move things around and make fake food or that's another thing that's interesting. But I don't know anything about that too much yet. But the whole, if you're vegan or if you're vegetarian and all that, I get it, support it. But then some of these fake food companies and brands, they sketch me out.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care.
Synthetic food.
Yeah, I like the idea of being really healthy. Trust me, if I could honestly stop eating steak and red meat tomorrow easily, I probably would.
Right.
If I could go past the taco truck and not want a steak taco, I'd be straight. Right. But
that's not the case.
That still doesn't make me want a fake burger.
Right.
Or a fake. Yeah. I'd rather just have a salad.
Yes.
And I love salads.
Right.
I love
bean soup.
Some things are cool, like cauliflower wings and stuff like that. Those are actually pretty good. I can eat stuff like that. But some of this other 3D printed stuff or stuff like that, I just don't get it. It confuses me. I'm ignorant to it, and it scares me, and I don't like the idea of it.
I'm still recovering from fucking atypical anorexia, right? And I'm like reclaiming food. If I have to live a life of drinking Soylent for the rest of my life, it's over for me. Yeah. I don't want that life of fake food that tastes hard to get down your throat. Yeah. And that feels just like it doesn't even feel right in your texture and your taste buds. Yeah. It's like, give me the bounty that the earth provides, because it provides it for a reason, and it's because it's trying to take care of us.
There's literally nothing better than eating something that came from life.
Yeah.
Plant life and animal,
And with full respect to, the animal that gave its life.
Yeah.
If I'm a meat eater.
Yeah, 100%.
And culturally and by your DNA, you might be, because your heritage was that of animal protein. Right. So yeah, if we could all.
You can't hate a lion for the way that it eats and hunts.
No,
it's brutal and it's fucked. I follow Nature's Metal on Instagram, and it's just so it just shows little animals getting eaten alive, literally eaten alive.
Oh God!
Just looking around,
eyes are blinking,
mooing.
But that's realistic.
Still walking while hyenas are pulling up.
Yeah, parts of their lamb or their fucking hind quarter. Their stomach intestines just dropping on the ground.
Literally all that crazy
my
stuff.
God. Ew.
It's crazy. I'll send you some.
Okay. I actually want to see it.
Nature's Metal. It really shows you everything that National Geographic can't show you.
Oh wow.
And it tries to be as respectful as it can about
with regards to this is actual
this reality. Is life, a lot of the content they get is from national forests all over the world, in the Congo or Africa or, Amazon or, all over. Mm-hmm. It's actually not a lot of American stuff because that shit's all illegal or, frowned upon, But, yeah. But it's about 5 o'clock. I really appreciate you coming on. I wish we could I could literally ask you 10 more questions about big subjects.
When I come back, I'm, headed to Atlanta tonight, catching a plane at 9:50 after I give this nonviolent direct action training in Ann Arbor. But I'm more than happy to come back and have more chats.
Nonviolent direct action training.
Yep. So that's all we have at our disposal.
Is that for police or for?
Yeah, for protest, for frontline spaces, for people that don't know what to do and how to get engaged in the more direct way.
Yeah.
That isn't just letter writing to your local politician and, you know, sending emails. Giving them training on, look, y'all, it's not terrifying. Yeah. It's not. It's actually normal people doing normal people shit, just using our constitutional rights.
Yeah. Next time we should dive into police brutality. And I mean that in a way of, like, actually talking about it and what it means and what abolishing the police can mean. Because when you think that, some people are like, you can't just get rid of the police. It's like, we're not just saying get rid of the police. We're saying pay teachers more, educate them more. We're saying bring in more counselors all over, build better rehab centers. We're not saying cancel the police, just that.
No.
But, you know, like, yeah, we still going to need people to break up domestic violence cases. You're still going to need, you know, but they need to be handled better. They don't need to be handled with guns and more violence and getting dragged out at jail cell right away. You know what I mean? Like, things, realistically, in domestic violence, it's like, they just need to be separated. That's what you need, another person to come in and separate, whether it's your big brother or a bigger guy or whatever, you know, like, and that's the one thing, but it doesn't have to go as far as some things take, you know. Yeah,
and if you attack, you know, resource scarcity, then you've attacked the reason that a lot of policing still exists, right? Exactly. If people are sheltered, if they're fed, if their emotional and mental safety is on, they go out into the world to be quote unquote productive human beings and don't cause those problems that we think we need police for.
Exactly.
And it's an easier answer than people want to give it, but I'm all about RJTJ, you know, restorative, transformative justice and creative justice as a replacement. And I think, honestly, it could work.
Yeah.
And there's no reason that it wouldn't, other than the fact that we are very stuck in a mindset of policing is the only way. But
I think it should be tried, even if we do keep police around for a while until we figure it out. Like, look, all right, so we've done this for the last 5 years. Now maybe we can decrease the police population. Right? I mean, now that we've seen the last 5 years, this worked, this decreased, that increased, that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and if listeners want to look into Portugal and the Cahoots program in Eugene to talk about, or to see like what it looks like to have other systems in place that are not straight, you know, policing, they'll see the models of how it's proven to work.
Oh,
right?
See, I'm about to actually look that up.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, sweet. Thank you so much for joining. Definitely let me know when you're in town. This place is all yours whenever you want to talk.
Thank you.
Or have anything you want to share. Yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you. Peace and love, everybody.